Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of On the Block. My name is Najah Roberts. So super excited to be here today. I have an incredible guest that I would like to introduce you all to today. This gentleman is, in my opinion, one of the giants in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. He's been in this space a very long time. And as I've said many times, in talking to different groups, I feel like I stand on the shoulders of many giants in this industry that came long before I did. And this just happens to be one of those giants. This gentleman's name is Reggie Middleton. He is the disruptor. He is a disruptor in chief. He has his own company, which we're going to be learning about in a little while, called Veritaseum. And I'm just going to read his bio because it is long and strong. So, Reggie has advised tens of thousands of investors, traders, hedge funds, family offices. We talked about that a little bit earlier today in one of our sessions about family offices, but he's one of the folks that actually advised them and some global banks. Mr. Middleton publicly predicted the fall of Bears and Stearns, the Lehman Brothers, GGP, which is the second largest U.S. Retail REIT. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's a real estate investment trust. And the European sovereign debt crisis amid nearly 100 successful macro and investment calls. Reggie's firm has been the first, I need you all to hear me, the first to settle a peer-to-peer blockchain swap, the first to apply for a patent protection for the capital markets application of the technology in every major financial jurisdiction, and has heralded the merits of the blockchain-based asset since 2013. We're going to come back and talk about that a little bit. He has been featured on the Kaiser Report, Boom Bust, Bloomberg, BBC, and NBC, and he's on there on a regular basis. And a very fun fact, Reggie is an accomplished mixed martial artist. I don't know why I'm not surprised about that. He seems very, very disciplined. Initially, he qualified for the 1988 Olympic team and is an active father. He is an active fighter, but he's an actual father as well, and an active father. We'll find that out in a second because just got finished. He just got finished sharing that he's going to go make dinner for his daughter. Self-sovereign. He's a philanthropist, and again, he is a father of three. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Mr. Reggie Middleton. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. I'm
That
listening
is
to that
good.
dude that described. I'm like, wow, that sounds interesting. Who's that?
That is you, my brother. We stand on your shoulders. We have sat back, and I haven't sat back, but only I met was made aware of you around 2017, and since then I have been watching some of the things that you've been doing. You have been stealth-like. That's what I will say. You haven't been noisy, but you have definitely been stealth-like. You have been building a foundation, and just really a lot of things that you've done are really critical in the space. And so let me just ask you a question. How long have you been in this space?
Since June 2013, somewhere around there. You
Since
know,
June
yeah.
2017. So
No,
how
no,
did
13, 13.
2013. So how did you come to find this space? What was your previous background? Where did you grow up? That sort of thing.
I grew up I was born in Queens, Jamaica, Queens. Grew up in Long Island, Roosevelt. Public Enemy for those who are of age.
Uh-huh.
Chuck D from Public Enemy lived around one corner. Eddie Murphy lived around the other corner. And then we had Dr. J and Howard Stern. And they all came from the same little town. in Long Island called Roosevelt, about 2,000 people. Um, it's right between, it's maybe about 15 minutes outside of Queens and about
Okay.
35 minutes outside the city. So that's where I grew up. Been in Brooklyn for about since 1993. Um, and I first found out about crypto because I had the Boom Bust blog. I had a advisory blog that was rather successful. You know, a lot of strong calls. You named quite a few of them. Um, got me some notoriety on mass media and the precursor to social media, which was, I guess, was the blogosphere. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my clients asked me to look into Bitcoin, which I ignored them. They asked me in 2010 and again in 2011, again in 2012. I should have listened to them, right? And in 2013, I finally decided to look into it. I read the Bitcoin Wiki and the Bitcoin white paper, and I was like, yo, I think we're onto something here, you know? And I was down the rabbit hole ever since. It took me 6 months of due diligence. No, maybe 3 months of due diligence, 3 months of initial development. I decided to take something called the ISDA. That's the International Swap Dealers Association agreement. It's an agreement that it's a plain vanilla template that shows someone how to create a swap with the legalese and the duties of the parties, etc. I encoded that onto the Bitcoin blockchain, and we actually got the code to work through smart contract scripts, etc. And we settled our first peer-to-peer blockchain-based swap before the end of 2013.
That
And
is absolutely incredible. And
so,
and did you do that with and so I have to ask because when you read that, I know people don't really understand the magnitude of that. Did you have a team of people, or is that something that you were able to just sit down and get on the computer and do? Like, how did that even come about? Because it's an incredible thing.
I came up with the idea on my own after, calling around to the prominent developers in the space. Remember, this is uh, it's about 2 years before the launch of Ethereum, and right about the same time, the concept of Ethereum was being congealed as a white paper, but it was nothing substantial. It was nothing written down at the time. So after I called around doing my due diligence, I hired a developer, and he helped put together the proof of concept, the actual functional swap, and then I hired a team after that. Some pretty heavy intellectual capital, and I have my own team of analysts that worked with me for the since 2007. So I had 6, 7 years worth of analytical experience and the team to do the work. Because remember, this was really mostly about financial engineering. Um,
Mm-hmm.
less about development and code. A lot of people don't realize that, but that's how I got such a large head start over everybody, because I was a financial engineer, an investor, and valuation and macro guy, and not a developer. Now I'm a technophile. I love my tech. I'm as nerdy as they get, but I'm not a developer or IT engineer by training. And so I looked at, when I read the Bitcoin white paper and the Bitcoin wiki, I got a very, very different impression of what I saw as compared to what I think most other people saw. I saw financial derivatives. I saw the ability to totally reinvent the financial ecosystem without middlemen. And I didn't think about little Bitcoins going up and down in price. Remittances were, an obvious step, but I knew that was going to be the low hanging fruit. I knew that was going to be commoditized very quickly because it's just too easy to do. Okay. But replacing Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan in functionality was actually much more doable than most people thought. And that was our first step. So we stepped in replacing banks, brokers, and exchanges where others were either speculating or looking at remittances.
And I just have to say that is incredible. And I am not going to repeat it, but if you missed that last sentence from Reggie Middleton, you will understand where we're going with this next question. So, since you stepped in and actually created that pathway for decentralization in a different way, what type of reception were you met with? Were they happy about it? Have there been challenges? Like, what did that look like when you created that? Um, Man, when you just revolutionized something. The first time in history it had been done. So, what was the reception in reference to that?
Well, I revolutionized it, but nobody knew it yet. Um, of the people who knew me and had confidence in my abilities, either thought it was revolutionary or I didn't think so, but they believed in me, so they said it probably is revolutionary. But when I moved from the hardcore finance investment world into the crypto world, there was a large contingent of the crypto guy, or medium-sized contingent of crypto guys who knew of me because they followed the alternative medias. I was a prolific contributor to Zero Hedge. I was all over CNBC. So I was semi-famous-ish among those circles. But as crypto started to grow, I think there are a lot of people who probably didn't understand who I was or what I was dealing with, and I probably didn't get the respect that maybe someone who's well learned at what I did would have given me. But that's not what I was there for. What we did do though is we patented most of the stuff that we did in 2014, uh, around May 2013, 2014. I'm sorry, and that was turned out to be a very important step because, like I said, um, the concepts of removing the middlemen, doing peer-to-peer financial transactions of complexity, using smart contracts and conditional scripts and all this other stuff was um, basically the creation of DeFi. Um, and a lot of people argue, well, so and so created DeFi, so and so did this, so and so created smart contracts. But true decentralized finance of any complexity, it's not a smart contract. It is not about just exchanging one value for another. There's a lot that goes into it. So if you read the patent application, you'll see the patent application is dense, but it's very, very capable. That was in 2014. The patents are starting to issue, and it's not as if we were just waiting around. We fought what's called prosecuting the patent. So we fought and argued and, cited case law and, you know, did logical back and forths with the US and Japan for 6 years. Yeah, six,
6 years.
7 years. Yes.
Mhm.
And the Japan granted it in December 2000, October of 2020. We did what we call continual or divisional applications to put in more applications before we accepted the grant. When we did, it hit January 2021. The US granted it in December, December 2021. Okay, we did additional applications and we accepted the grant. It was actually issued in, I think it was either December 7th or January of this year.
Oh,
So,
this year.
yeah, so we got ownership of basically the creation of DeFi, ownership of DeFi from an intellectual property perspective for the world's largest economy, the US, and the world's third largest economy, which is Japan. We have multiple applications in other places in the world. Hold for 1 second, I have one important message. Multiple applications in other places in the world, and we'll see how that turns out.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure, um, when I hear Reggie talk or Reggie comes into some of the places where we are having a conversation, I just kind of sit back because I always say, I think of the Beyonce song, You Must Not Know About Me, because a lot of folks do not know what Reggie actually brings to this space. And again, as I said, we stand on the shoulders of giants. I think that you are brilliant. I think that everything that you've done It's just been incredible. And I know it has not been easy, or if you could tell us how difficult it's been, to just kind of share with folks, what this space is about and how good or not good this space has been to a Black man that is trying to, not is trying to, who has created and patented and really put a dent and a footprint in this space. How has that been for you?
Yeah, well, I can give you a couple of factoids along the way. Um, the companies that I started to build the initial DeFi, the swap product, had a problem raising capital. I had a problem raising capital, which is interesting, being that I was one of the most successful researchers and investors from a return perspective. I think of the entire uh, 2007 through 2009, 2010 area. I called almost every major bust, all the banks, insurers, and real estate companies. The UMP and sovereign debt crisis. I called Google and Android going up. I shorted Apple, which people thought was suicidal and funny, so Apple dropped. Um, it had a pretty accurate record. I also found Bitcoin, not early, but 2013 is early enough. And I, sang its praises, but I couldn't get the capital. We did file the patent applications, and I had to go, we had to shut one company down because I felt that regulation was impending, and I didn't want to be regulated as a financial entity because I felt that was a software concern. So we voluntarily wound that down. We spun up another one, research based, and the SEC called us a month or two after we got started. And nobody knew it, but for 3 years, we're going back and forth with, you know, literally a million pages or so, hundreds of thousands of millions of pages worth of document production, depositions. Even my teenage son was deposed. Lots of stuff, millions of dollars of legal fees. And eventually they decided to sue me for fraud and other things, um, which I can now, after signing papers, neither admit or deny. But if you go through legal documents, you could see our legal reply, 460 something pages, very detailed and clearly spelled out what our position was at the time. Um, there were many other organizations I felt were nowhere near as productive or as clear or as clean as I was. They didn't have such issues. I leave it up to you all to decide, what is what. But there were multiple allegations, such as defrauding those who bought the tokens from our ICO. They're staunchly behind me years after the fact. Our token holders are staunchly supportive of us, even though the company no longer has any relation to the token. They drained all our personal capital, all of our corporate capital, and locked up $2 billion worth of tokens. Um, Despite that, the token holders are still staunchly on our side. They have what they call a fair fund, where the token holders can get the capital that was taken from me personally and from the company. There are roughly 10,000 wallet holders, according to the token holders themselves. I've washed my hands of it all, but the token holders have done calculations. Out of 10,000 plus wallet holders, about 200 people took up the offer.
Mm.
And you didn't even have to give your very tokens back. You could have kept your very tokens and got the money. The few, not a contingent of those who actually said that they would go through the process of getting money and a refund, have told me that they will send the money back to its original owner, which they considered to be me, according to what they said, which is, again, amazing considering I was alleged to have defrauded.
Right.
And then there's also issues of the patent, and I was alleged to have had, you know, marketed patent applications that I knew would never be granted. And so thus far, two have been granted, and still working on others. I will not comment any further on that, but over time, you can see where through the support of people who have done business with, and some of our partners, I was knocked down, but I'm up, and I am now 100% intellectual property focused. To give you an example of how, and again, according to the documentation that I had to sign, I neither admit or deny the allegations, but you can just look at the actual paperwork to see what the position was at the time when the motions were filed. So I don't want to give the impression that I am saying I didn't do X, Y, and Z, because that could potentially get me in trouble. I am simply recalling the facts of people who've been dealing with this from a token holder's perspective. As a matter of fact, they actually spent their own capital to hire a lawyer to get a no action letter so they could use the Veritasium tokens that they purchased um, to no avail. And if I'm not mistaken, about 35 others have also filed for no action letters. A no action letter is a request to the SEC to allow them to use the product without any consequence for the SEC.
Right.
Again, I find this to be an awful lot of activity from alleged defrauded. Um, so they created a DAO, a digital autonomous organization. Again, these are all very holders, and that DAO's purpose is to do research and support the intellectual property that is owned by me personally. A lot of support, and this support is diverse, across multiple countries, multiple ethnicities, multiple geographic locations, nationalities, etc. Um, Now, to give you an example of how, and also the allegations that I was overemphasizing the reach and the grasp of the technology and the product. So, to give you an example of the actual patent itself, there's a graphic that I sent in. If you can put that up now, because I'm going to forget to mention that later. It's a little pie chart with a Veritasium token in the middle.
All right, we'll get that put up on the screen for you right now, if we can.
Okay, now as you're putting that up, the patent, the oversimplified things. Okay, basically we patented DeFi and the uh, technological devices, methods, and systems that encompass DeFi. So this is systems and methods, and then DeFi is a small subset of that. Okay, um, and patents are acknowledgement by a government that you have created something or invented something and you own that intellectual property. And the government gives you a monopoly on the use and the sale of that intellectual property or that invention for X years. It's usually 20 years, but it takes you a couple of years to get the patent. It took us 6, 7, 7 years to get it.
7 years.
Okay.
So it'll be really quick. So it'll be 20 years from this year since you just got it in January.
20 years from 2014.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and the reason why it was such a long prosecution period, not method, is because this was brand new, especially back then, and even now, there's a lot that's understood, and it's a very powerful patent. It's what is known as foundational technology. So, foundational technology is a type of technology that lies at the base of entire industries. Okay,
Hmm.
or not even industries, entire paradigms. To give you an example of foundational technology, the telephone, the integrated chip, integrated circuit, computer chip, the PC, the smartphone, the internet. Okay, and these technologies, of which have built upon them entire swaths of the economy and the social being of the world.
Yes.
Significant, and I believe that uh, peer-to-peer capital markets, which is what I call the overarching, you know, umbrella, is foundational technology for the next step going forward for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years or beyond. This patent is new, and that circle that you have there
Hmm.
shows companies that have had to cite our patent in order to apply for their own patent. So when you cite a patent, that means that you have to acknowledge that in order, if we were to get the patent that we were applying for, we have to acknowledge that Reggie's patent was here first, and we have to stand on top of that patent. So, um,
Wow.
Enchain, yeah, Enchain has cited the patent 12 times. For those who are not familiar with what Enchain is the intellectual property holding company of which Craig Wright is the chief science officer. Craig Wright is the guy who alleges that he is Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin. Not going into the debate whether he is or he's not, but he has about 1,800 patent applications, if I'm not mistaken. He's been
Wow.
granted hundreds of patents, all in the Bitcoin technology space, specifically for not just Bitcoin, but proof of work, blockchains, etc. He had to cite 12 times. We haven't cited any of these guys once. Initially, we only had 7 citations, and those citations were old technologies from the 90s, 2008, etc. Right when they granted the patent, they threw on another 7, so I think it's like 15 altogether. But if you take a look at them, they really have nothing to do with our patent, and most of them are quite old. We have 61 citations, right, that had to cite us. We only cited 15. Of those 15, almost none of them really apply, but I'm not going to argue with that. So it's my opinion. They don't apply. So the second largest is, I think, Wells Fargo Bank. I think they cited 5, 6, or 7 times. We also have Microsoft, IBM, NASDAQ, TD Bank, yeah,
Yes.
Royal
I
Bank
see.
of Canada. Yeah,
So I see MasterCard International
right.
incorporated on here too. But let me ask you a layman question. So because all these individuals who had to cite your actual patent IP before theirs got granted, does that mean that they owe you some sort of monetary?
They,
Um,
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't. When I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
no, I'm trying to figure out what my words would be. Does that mean that they owe you something monetarily? I guess I'll just say it that way.
Yeah. They don't yet, but there's a strong chance that if they had to cite the patent, and not all these patents are necessarily issued, most of them are, but not all of them are issued when you apply, right? Either you voluntarily cite my patent or the patent examiner goes in and says this is really very closely related to Reggie's patent or on top of his patent. So they
Okay.
force you to cite it. And that's what happens most of the time. Very seldom do these companies voluntarily cite. But since they had to cite the patent, whatever product or service or method they're trying to apply for a patent for, when they actually uh, do it and introduce it into the market, there's a very strong chance that it will infringe on our patent. Very strong chance, and that's what the USPTO is saying. Now, this is just a snapshot. To give you an example of what my personal opinion is, I'm going to qualify this now. My personal non-legal opinion, I'm not a lawyer, not technical opinion, I'm not an engineer or software developer. I'm just a dad. Okay. So
A
what this
smart
dad,
dad. A smart dad. Go ahead.
so what this dad's opinion is, this covers already a large section of the industry in the first and third largest economies in the world, and the first and second largest crypto economies in the world. Japan's the third largest economy. In my opinion, it's the second largest crypto economy because of the large banking system and their crystal clear rules and laws regarding crypto. Very much unlike the US. Now, the US is so big, they can get away with that for a while, but that's a different conversation. And so I believe that Solana infringes. And, we have a 67-page report, reveal 80 pages altogether when it's done. That shows it. Okay. I believe Ethereum infringes. Okay. Have roughly a 60 to 80-page report, right? That details it, doing my own research. Okay. The Bitcoin Lightning Network infringes. It's a possibility Bitcoin itself may infringe. I just haven't had a chance to go into it, and I haven't had anybody else go into it as well. Ripple's on-demand liquidity implementation infringes. As a matter of fact, you go to the patent, and there's a description of what Ripple has called on-demand liquidity, writing the patent. And it's so similar, it looks like it's almost word for word. It's just using different currencies. And it's using Bitcoin versus XRP. Most of the swaps written on top of these protocols, in my opinion, my personal dad opinion, non-legal, non-technical, that would be, it started with Bancor, okay, and then Bancor was forked by this company called Uniswap, locally in Brooklyn. Uniswap was forked by SushiSwap. SushiSwap was forked by PancakeSwap, on and on and on. But if that first swap, Bancor, infringed, well, then since everybody else copied that code, then they likely
And
infringed as well.
everybody else infringed.
Okay. This is my personal, again, dad opinion, not legal, not technical. Okay. So that everybody from that base infringes. Uniswap is very large in terms of actual dollars used. So is PancakeSwap. So is SushiSwap, etc. Other examples, these peer-to-peer, these decentralized exchanges, many, if not most, in my opinion, infringe. We could go down the list. Implementations from the big banks, the JP Morgans, using, enterprise Ethereum, etc. In my opinion, infringe. Go down the list, tokenized assets. We tokenized gold in 2018, but we patented the process in 2014. So tokenized gold, regardless of the protocol, likely infringe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The top 5 assets on CoinDesk, in my opinion, infringe, except for Tether. And Tether may infringe. I just haven't had a chance to go through Tether's code completely. Sounds like a big deal, right?
It's a big, 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 big deal. I
Well,
don't want to keep saying big, but it's a big deal.
well, not according to some, because believe it or not, CoinDesk, which is the largest media concern in the industry, not only has not ran an article, but has ignored my requests or even dares. I've dared them to run an article. This is the chief content officer, the chief editor.
Well, Reggie, why would they do something like that? Can you tell everybody why they would just ignore that a brother is telling them that they need to run this article? Why would they do that? And I'm trying not to laugh because I'm tickled because they are just who they are, no matter what space we're in. Why would they ignore you?
But I can only surmise, but I do have word from 3 different individuals inside CoinDesk that they've shot it down every time it was brought up. So I'll give you a little background. It's not like CoinDesk won't run an article on me. They're very happy to run a negative article. The SEC sued me. They,
They
for
really are.
alleged fraud. They run that for no problem. I settled and paid $10.5 million in liquid assets and $2 billion in tokens. Right? They run that. Of course, they forgot to include my answer to the SEC's allegations, 462 pages, a dozen witnesses, etc. They forgot that part, but they remembered the negative part, right?
Yes.
I got one of my service providers got hacked, and I got SIM swapped. They included that, but they didn't call it a hack. They called it an alleged hack. But they ran that. Interesting enough, every time someone else gets hacked, it's a hack. But my service provider gets hacked and I'm alleged.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So they're running an article. They're running a negative article. I've done a lot of positive things in the finance space and in the crypto space. Not a single article in any of it. If you do a search in CoinDesk, at least from a couple of months ago, type in the word patent, I got 556 articles responding to the word patent. Okay. Most of these patents are relatively minor or very niche and specific. I believe my patent is foundational technology for the industry. It is by far the most important news item in the industry and by far the most important patent in the industry. But they felt that it wasn't worth running. So you can ask why. Ask me why they felt that after all this background. Ask me again.
Why do you think they felt like that, Reggie? Why?
So I'm not going to go the way that you want or that you would guess, but I believe there's validity to that. But I'm going to walk you through how a strong fundamental investor and a macro economic investor thinks, a strategic
Okay.
investor. So
Okay.
let's look at where the money is. About 2 weeks ago, they ran an article that said that they were giving a disclaimer. They were disclaiming and admitting to the fact that they are allowing their reporters and their editors to participate in what they call stock appreciation rights with
Mm-hmm.
the parent company's equity. The parent company is called DCG, Digital Currency Group. It's
Mm-hmm.
ran by who is now a very wealthy guy. Okay, I'm not going to give his name, but a very wealthy guy. He controls it, and he's been in the space roughly about the same time I have. Okay, um, he bought CoinDesk on the cheap. I should have bought it, but I didn't. He bought CoinDesk on the cheap, so he owns CoinDesk. He also owns the largest investor in the space, Grayscale, with roughly
Mm.
48 billion dollars of assets under management. They have a Bitcoin investment trust, Ethereum investment trust, a trust that I think holds Solana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He also was one of the early investors in Coinbase and BitGo, and basically every major crypto firm out. He has over 200 private equity investments. He has almost 30, like 28, 29 liquidity events where the companies went public, like Coinbase, or where they were bought out by another company. So very well spread, but very heavily invested. Now, if my patent is truly foundational technology for the crypto space and the DeFi space, that means my patent covers many, if not most of those investments. As I said, just what I mentioned, Lightning Network on Bitcoin, possibly even Bitcoin, but I'm not going to claim that because I haven't checked, I haven't had time. The Lightning Network on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, on-demand liquidity through RippleNet, uh, Uniswaps, and layer twos. I didn't mention mainly layer two implementations. Again, in my opinion, as a dad, not a lawyer or a technologist. Okay, that's an opinion, but that's a lot. Um,
It's a
I
lot.
can, I can, in a hypothetical world, I can potentially go and sue for royalties. I can I can request for them to cease and desist, and not to use these Ethereums and these Solanas, et cetera, without paying me my royalties. They can either agree or they can disagree and fight and try and prove they don't infringe, which is going to be pretty difficult. I told you I have a lot of intellectual capital harnessed on this. Lots of extensive reports. I should have put one of these reports up, um, redacted, of course, but they average about 80 something pages. Lots of proof. Okay, very smart people working on it. Or they could try and invalidate the patent, which is what everybody's trying to do right now.
Right now.
Right now, they
Right
started as
now.
soon as they could, and I'm talking multiple law firms and all types of, not just firms and practitioners, etc. Um, and I've gotten verbal threats. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, which is unfortunate because I've never threatened to sue anybody. I'm not a big litigator. But at the same time, the intellectual property is mine, as recognized by the US and the Japanese government, and potentially other very large governments throughout the world, but we're not going to go there. And so I do not want others profiting from IP that is legally mine. So um, if I were to do that, okay, and CoinDesk were to run an article on our patent, okay, and tell the truth about how wide-reaching and far-reaching it is, well, then that would actually take money out of the editors and reporters' pockets. They literally get paid based upon how high the DCG equity increases.
Mm.
DCG equity potentially and probably would decrease if we got into a legal spat and I sent them cease and desist, because, or even if they cooperated and they paid royalty fees, which I feel they should. It's a lot cheaper that way. Um, that's profit minus the royalty fee for the IP, which they've been using, which is not theirs. Assuming everything I said is true. Okay. And so you have a massive conflict of interest from what is allegedly a news outlet, okay, covering the tracks of multiple private equity investments, public investments, trusts, publicly traded stock, etc. So is it really a news outlet or is it really a marketing um, machine
Marketing arm.
for, the conglomerate? Now,
Right.
you probably haven't heard anybody say this. Why would I say it? Why would I make enemies with them? I don't want to make enemies. I think all I said was the truth. I think I was very cordial and fair. And are they neutral? Well, look at the negative stories, look at the positive stories. If you look at the negative things versus the positive things, one outweighs the other significantly.
Right.
If you just ran the SEC story and you looked at anything besides just the SEC papers, that's the entire news story right there. That would have been covered by a real news organization that looked at both sides of the story and not just one. Why would you only look at one? Well, there are two reasons. Either you didn't know any better, which would make you a subpar news investigative outlet, or you didn't want to see the other side and you wanted to show a certain perspective or patina. Why
Yes.
would you ignore the biggest story in the industry? Well, either you didn't know any better, which would make you a very good news outlet, or you had an agenda and telling it the whole truth or the truth at all wouldn't fit that agenda. Now, I'm not going to cast aspersions. I'm not going to say CoinDesk or DCG said X, Y, and Z. But if it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it probably ain't a platypus. You know what I'm saying?
You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. Let me just ask you a quick question because I know this is a burning question. We probably do have some questions that are going to come up, and we know that you are short on time, so we're not going to go a long while at all. But I'd like to ask my own question: how or if someone could actually invest in Vertasium now? Is there a way for just regular everyday people to invest in Vertasium if they're interested in doing so?
Well, I've learned my lesson about anything with the word invest in the US right now.
Okay. Okay.
I, I believe, in my personal opinion, that the regulatory environment is a quagmire and a swamp and a death trap for anybody who's not part of the club. I wasn't part of it. Now, there are ways to manage that, but I just much rather not be involved in it, which is unfortunate because we could always use investment capital. And I believe that we have something very big, very hot. So that investment capital would be given by somebody who, in my opinion only, could potentially benefit greatly. The risk reward ratio is strong, in my opinion. But, you know, who wants to be sued by their own government? you know,
Right.
who wants to
Right.
be accused of things by their own government? Nah, nah, not worth it. And it's
So
not just me.
can we
You know,
get involved in the DAO?
excuse me.
Can we get involved in the DAO?
That is quite possible to get involved in the DAO. The DAO filters and screens for expertise um, in areas that they need help in. Uh, Legal, particularly um, intellectual property, um, engineering, software engineering and development, particularly with the languages that these blockchains use, marketing, PR. So I am not a member of the DAO. Okay.
Okay.
I purposely decided to stay out because that would be one less target on the DAO's back. Okay. But if you want to be a member of the DAO, go to the Veritaseum official Telegram group. So download the Telegram app or just go to the Telegram um, website. Okay.
Mhm.
And type in Veritaseum official in the search engine and ask about joining the DAO. Okay. And one of the admins would pick up. Um, and you can follow me on Twitter at Reggie Middleton. I'm fairly prolific on Twitter. I believe I drop a lot of science and educated opinion, not to mention some actual hard research analytical facts that are hard to come by, but I give away for free. I still have my full-time analytical staff. They've been with me since 2007, and
Mm.
together we've had some killer calls. We've outdone every bank in Southside Wall Street by a wide margin. And we also are doing a new series. Most of these reports are going to be given away, where we're going to analyze the crypto industry company by company, since a lot of these companies are now public. And we're going to do that thorough analysis that allowed us to call, the housing crash, the real estate crash, and, the bank crash, etc. But we're also going to do an IP analysis, which currently does not exist. And I can tell you right now, many of these big professional investors putting billions and billions of dollars in have done zero intellectual property due diligence. I know that because there are many big brand name investors who are now infringing our patent, and not just our patent, but other patents as well.
Mm.
And many of them decided to fight versus license, which I think is just, in personal opinion, foolish. As long as the license fee is not ridiculous, it's an expense. It's like you're hosting your website on AWS, Amazon Web Services, and you want to fight Amazon and sue them and bring them to court so you can host your site on their service for free. Why? Pay your $100 a month and move on, you know?
Yeah.
But, they want to fight, and they want to sue and fight Amazon. When you fight, usually the only one that gets paid is your lawyer or your lawyers. So I'm looking at different ways to conduct business, because that's my strength. A financial engineer, I solve problems, and I'm looking for a way to find a way to monetize a patent and not to go through expensive litigation. I don't want this to be. I don't want potential licensees or infringers to mistake kindness for weakness or intelligence for weakness. So I am more than well suited to prosecute and defend the patent in multiple countries. As a matter of fact, I'm holding my lawyers back because lawyers want to do what lawyers do, and I'm saying let's be strategic about it. But if there are any obvious infringers, um, exchanges, etc., who decide that they want to test metal versus conduct reasonable business, I don't think it's going to end the way they anticipate. But I am not litigious the least bit. Can't stand court. I'm a very reasonable guy, and I use math. So 2 + 2 = 4 in my book. Not 16 and not 0.
That's right. Definitely not zero. And I'm smiling because I am looking forward to seeing you prevail in this space, which I know you will. And I've heard both sides of the argument, a couple times when you were talking in public and just sitting back, really with a smile, because you have done your thing, and I'm super excited for you. And we definitely want to be in respect of your time. And we're coming to the end of this hour. And we just really appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. I am just I'm grateful because I've always wanted you to be able to tell your story uninterrupted, because I think it's incredible. I think it is a testimony to how we need to keep on keeping on, no matter how difficult it gets. And just keep holding our stance. And again, I didn't file any patents, but I definitely did some trademark work and some things like that. I'm not a smart mom, super smart mom like you're a super smart dad, but we're working on some things. So we just got to make sure that we're protected in this space. And I think that you have done an incredible job. What you have to offer and what is getting ready to happen is going to be extraordinary. And I know I wouldn't be the one to say that they heard it here first, because you've been on all sorts of different things, but it really telling this side of the story, this perspective. We appreciate you coming on and sharing that information. And I know there are some questions, but I'm going to ask everybody if they can reach out to Reggie directly to ask those questions, because he did tell us he had some time constraints today, and we want to respect that because we want to have him back for a nationally syndicated show as well. And so we're looking forward to having him there. But you can reach Reggie at Linktree. For those of you that know how Linktree works, it's that linktr.ee / Reggie Middleton. So if you all can reach out to him there, get all his information. Uh, and he pronounced it right for me, Veritasium, right? I've been saying Vertasium, but it's Veritasium, right?
Close
Am I
enough.
correct?
Close enough.
Either way,
Yeah,
potatoes,
verification.
potatoes. Yes, Veritasium. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you to you all. And Reggie, it was an honor and a pleasure to hear your side of the story. For folks to just get to know who this historical Black figure is in this cryptocurrency space. Uh, and ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning of what you're going to hear. And I really believe that you're going to hear Reggie's name all over the place very, very soon and be able to say, you know what, I heard this story. And then you're able to make heads or tails of some of the stuff that you hear and some of the, some of the stuff that may or may not be in the media, right? But we appreciate him. We appreciate his time. And Reggie, is there anything that you want to share as we close out?
Okay. Well, I'm going to do my own media, like I used to do with Boom Bust Blog, either through Boom Bust Blog or through the YouTube channels with backups. So in case, somehow YouTube decides it doesn't want to, publish it or Twitter, there's always a backup the old school style directly off of my own servers. And you're going to hear the stories and get to see the stories that the coin desks of the world won't publish, such as who really created DeFi, what the most powerful assets and patents are, conflicts of interest, concentrations of power. For those who think that crypto is really decentralized, take a look at it. There are three centers of power, individually owned, believe it or not, and controlled in crypto, and they pretty much run the shop. So we talked about one. The other one is a guy who's actually, it's been real cool with me. He's actually local, so I'm not going to mention his name. I don't want anybody to take it as if we have a beef or anything, but he is who he is. And then there's a guy with a Chinese origin running Binance, whose personal net worth, according to Forbes, is greater than the market capitalization of Coinbase. To put this in
Wow.
perspective, it's greater than the market capitalization of Coinbase and the New York Stock Exchange, plus 25 billion. And that's his personal network.
Wow.
Okay. So, with that level of concentration of capital, there's going to be concentration of power. I'm not saying the guy's a good guy or a bad guy at all. He seems cool, but these are serious players, and this concentration denotes centralization. A lot of the crypto types patents are not open source and blah, blah, blah. Well, I created something. I didn't open source it, but I created it. It was mine. It's just that simple. For people who don't think you should be able to patent or own intellectual property, I find that to be nonsensical. Number one, I'm going to run down this right quick before I go. There's an argument that patents stifle innovation. The U.S. is the number one patent office in the world, right, with the deepest and oldest patent law. The United States has run almost all the technology booms have started, and where they're still commencing. The internet, software, the PC, the cell phone, the smartphone, all emanated from the U.S. Now, the U.S. might have outsourced it to places where they're cheaper labor, but the U.S. still controls the markets. Strange how the country with the tightest patent laws also has the biggest technology markets. Look at where the vaccine came first, the U.S. patent laws. Look at almost everything technological. That nonsense, that patent stop for innovation, is not true. The fact that the other nonsense mantra, myth, is that patent trolls, destroy businesses. No, patents give you the opportunity to defend yourself against the big guys. Okay, since I'm not part of the club, I never got the chance to raise the capitalization that Coinbase did, or Goldman Sachs, or JP Morgan. Okay, but I did get to file a patent. With that patent filed, now I have significant control over these companies. Okay, think about it. If we take out Ethereum and Solana and Ethereum Enterprise and on-demand liquidity and all that, these companies would not be able to operate in the crypto space, or they'd have to build everything from scratch. Why? Because it was someone else's idea, and the government has granted him ownership over his own idea. I am David. I'm not Goliath. I'm not a patent troll. I'm the guy that's here to defend his own property. I'm defending my house. Okay. Where did the concept of patent trolls come from? It came from the large technology and software houses because they didn't want to pay their fair due to other entrepreneurs. They were those other entrepreneurs in the beginning. You get to $1 billion, you don't want to share. These are the truths that come out. And there's a lot more. So follow me, and I get into it ad nauseum in Twitter almost daily. Okay.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you again, Mr. Reggie Middleton. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a fabulous episode during our Black Futures Month. You heard it first here on the block, unobstructed. I'm just so excited and so proud of this brother. He just doesn't know. I just appreciate the path that he's laid, and I'm not walking in the same footsteps because that takes a lot of big shoes. But we are definitely really appreciative of what he has brought to this space and what he has contributed, and he is a hidden figure, in my opinion. And so just look to hear more, look to hear more of us sharing what he's doing in this space because Black people know cryptocurrency, folks. He may not be on the main stage talking during these conferences, and we know why, but we're really, really super to have brought him here today to share his story. With that, Mr. Reggie Middleton, I want to say thank you again and to each and every one of you that are listening. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we will see you next week. We have another episode, not of On the Block coming, but we have a lot of good things coming up. We have these cool second annual Digital Revolution Tour shirts that we're selling. They are on our site. We are planning to come through the United States starting in May. And we're just super excited. So we're looking for individuals that would like to be city allies. We have got to get the word out about everybody's company, what we're doing in this space. Folks need to see people and hear people that look like them so that they understand that genius is common in our community because genius is common. And so we appreciate you again, Mr. Reggie. For those of you that want to reach out to him, please do so. And anyone that wants to reach out to us as well, please do so. We will answer any of your comments and concerns and questions. We're looking forward to that. You all have an incredible rest of your evening. This has been a phenomenal issue of On the Block. So we'll talk to you soon. Peace and blessings, family.